Visit from a Vampire. Part 4. Anton Kessler strode down the long hallway of his opulent mansion, his heavy footsteps echoing off the marble floors. His eyes swept over the extravagant paintings that adorned the walls, pieces worth fortunes, but only there to impress those who visited. The guards outside his bedroom stood rigid, machine guns slung across their chests, their expressions cold and focused. He liked the sense of power that came with their presence, the feeling of being untouchable, secure in his fortress of wealth and influence. Inside his vast estate, Anton was king, ruling over a kingdom of darkness, hidden beneath a veneer of respectability. His empire stretched far beyond the walls of his home, rooted in the misery and suffering of others. Yet here, in the stillness of the night, in his sanctuary, it was easy to forget the filth he thrived on. Reaching his bedroom door, he gave the guards a curt nod before stepping inside. The heavy door closed behind him with a solid thud, sealing him in his luxurious isolation. His hand moved to switch on the light, but he stopped. A shadowy figure sat motionless on the leather couch in the corner of the room, barely visible in the faint moonlight seeping through the large windows. His heart skipped a beat, and for the first time in years, fear slithered through his veins. "Who's there?" he barked, his voice sharp but laced with unease. There was no immediate response, only the quiet sound of someone breathing, steady and unhurried. As his eyes adjusted, he saw her, a girl no older than her early 20s, sitting casually, her legs crossed, her hands resting in her lap. Her expression was serene, almost bored. Anton's fear morphed into confusion and then suspicion. How had she slipped past his guards? He reached for the light switch, flooding the room with brightness. The girl's face came into view, pale skin, raven black hair, and dark eyes that gleamed with an unsettling intensity. She looked so harmless. He relaxed slightly, though he kept his distance. "Who the hell are you, and how did you get in here?" His tone was calmer now, but beneath it was a simmering irritation, the arrogance of a man who believed he had nothing to fear. Lily remained seated, her gaze unwavering. "You have powerful men guarding your doors, Anton, but they protect nothing more than an empty soul." Her voice was soft, almost playful, but there was a weight to her words that lingered in the air. Anton's eyes narrowed. "You've got some nerve breaking into my home and talking to me about souls, girl. I'll ask again. Who are you?" Lily smiled faintly, but didn't answer his question. Instead, she tilted her head as if studying him. "Do you believe in morality, Anton?" The unexpected question caught him off guard. He scoffed, crossing the room toward the bar to pour himself a drink. "Morality? You think men like me get this far worrying about what's right or wrong? No. Morality is for the weak, those who can't seize what they want." She watched him silently as he took a sip of whiskey, the glass clinking against the bottle as he set it down with a little too much force. "Do you think power justifies cruelty?" Lily's voice remained calm, but there was an edge to it now. Anton turned to face her, his irritation flaring. "Power is cruelty. That's the world. The weak get crushed underfoot. I didn't make the rules. I just learned how to play the game better than anyone else." Lily stood up then, her small frame appearing even more delicate in contrast to the large room. Despite her size, she commanded the space in a way that made Anton uneasy. "You're wrong," she said simply. "Power doesn't need cruelty. You choose it because it's easy, because you've convinced yourself it's the only way to survive. But it's not survival you crave, Anton. It's control. Control over life, over death, over people." Anton set his drink down, now fully alert. There was something about her presence that disturbed him. "What the hell do you know about survival, girl? Do you have any idea who I am? What I've done?" Her dark eyes flickered, a hint of amusement playing on her lips. "I know exactly who you are. Anton Kessler. Trafficker, murderer, destroyer of lives, you've built an empire on the suffering of others, and you think that makes you strong. She took a step closer, her gaze unrelenting. But you and I both know that inside, you're hollow. Every life you've taken, every soul you've shattered, it's left you empty. His jaw tightened. You think you know me. You think you understand what it takes to survive in this world. His voice rose, but the bravado felt thin. She moved toward him, her steps slow, deliberate. I understand survival better than you ever could. I've lived centuries. I've seen empires rise and fall, watched men like you claw their way to power only to rot in the hell they created for themselves. Anton's skin prickled with unease. There was something wrong, something unnatural about her. She spoke with the weight of someone who had lived far too long, her words carrying the kind of knowledge that made him feel small and insignificant for the first time in years. And you're different, he challenged, trying to regain control. You act like you're better than me, but I see it in your eyes. You're just like me. You've got that same hunger. For a long moment, Lily was silent. Then, softly, she said, You're right. I was like you once, hungry for control, for vengeance. I tore lives apart without a second thought. Her eyes darkened, and for a brief instant, Anton saw something ancient, something terrifying in her gaze. But I regret it. And now, when I look at you, it's like looking into a mirror. You remind me of everything I hate about myself. The weight of her words hit him like a blow. The room seemed to close in on him as he really realized, what stood before him. Not a girl, not a human. Something far older, far more dangerous. Despair crept into his chest as the realizations set in, and for the first time in his life, Anton Kessler sank to his knees. What are you? He whispered, his voice trembling. Lily didn't answer. She didn't need to. Instead, she stood there, watching him crumble under the weight of his own reflection. The room grew unnervingly still, the tension so thick it felt as though time itself had stopped. Anton's shallow breaths echoed in the silence as his gaze remained fixed on the floor, unable to look up at her. The shadows in the room seemed to deepen, curling around them like a shroud. There was no sound, no struggle, just the slow fading of Anton's presence as his heartbeat weakened, pulsing slower and slower, until finally, it stopped. When the stillness became complete, Lily wiped a single drop of blood from the corner of her mouth, her face serene once more. She looked down at Anton's lifeless form for a moment longer, her expression unreadable. As she turned and walked away, her footsteps echoed through the empty room. Ethan was drifting in and out of sleep when the familiar knock came at his window. He stirred, blinking at the clock. It was almost morning. The soft tapping was unmistakable. He pulled himself out of bed and shuffled over to the window, opening it just enough to see her standing there, her silhouette framed by the pale light of the moon. Lily stood waiting, a small smile on her lips. "Can I come in?" she asked softly. Ethan gave a tired grin. "You always ask." "It's part of the charm," she teased lightly. He opened the window wider, stepping back to let her in. As she slipped through, he noticed something different. Her skin wasn't its usual pale, cool shade. She looked warmer, almost flushed, her skin glowing softly in the dim light. "Everything all right?" Ethan asked, closing the window behind her. "You're warm." Lily glanced at him, her expression softening. "Just a busy night." Ethan raised an eyebrow but didn't push further. There was a brief moment where their eyes met, the air between them charged with something unspoken. Then, just as quickly, it passed, leaving only the comfortable quiet they always seemed to share. Lily moved toward the window, her gaze shifting to the sky. "The moon's still out," she said softly. "Want to watch it with me? Until sunrise?" Ethan followed her, leaning against the windowsill beside her. "Sure," he said quietly, his voice warm with the simplicity of the moment. "I'm not going back to sleep anytime soon." And so they stood there together, side by side in the fading darkness, watching as the night slowly gave way to the first hints of dawn, neither needing to fill the silence with words. That's all for tonight. If you enjoy my bedtime stories, please like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for joining me tonight.